And welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the first ever episode of a podcast about movies. I am joined by my co-host and someone who's been becoming a pretty
Me?
good friend of mine
Me?
over the last few months. Austin Pez Howell, how you doing, buddy?
Hey, man. It's thank you so much for having me. When you put out the call for a potential co-host, all I did was comment and say, "Hey, I'm available. If you want some help, I'm available. We'll see what happens. It's your call though." And yeah, I've been doing a lot of shows lately, but I'm very grateful to everybody who's had me on their shows and who's come to me to be kind of a go-to movie talk kind of guy. So I got a lot to say about movies, but I always follow whoever, and I'm always appreciative for anybody who comes on their shows and lets me talk. So I definitely appreciate that.
Yes, it's definitely a common interest we share, and I'm excited to start doing
Mhm.
this. You kind of teased for those who watch tournament fights over on the Movie Hero
Yeah,
Network. Kind of teased a little rant, so I'm excited to
sure.
hear that. Um, we'll be talking Spider-Man, of course, because Spider-Man's a big topic lately. Obviously, you've seen the movie. I haven't as of this recording.
Yeah, as of this recording, I just saw it a few hours ago. As of the day we're recording this, I saw the one of the first, 3 o'clock ish, tapings of Spider-Man. So I have seen the new one, and we'll be. I'll talk. Don't worry, I'm not going to spoil anything. I will be completely spoiler free. I promise. But yeah, when we're going to do a little Spider-Man ranking and kind of talk, the movies in general, I'll be including them in my rankings, and Jacob will not be because as of this one, he has not seen it. But yeah, so it'll be an interesting contrast there. I'll be very general, I promise. And yeah, so that'll be kind of our main topic. But before we get to that, kind of in the second half, yeah, we'll do my rant and we'll talk about what we've been seeing lately and just whatever comes up in between. But yeah, okay, I teased it. I teased it the other night. So okay, so the topic was family films, right? So we were talking family movies, and I had a rant about some of these movies that I either rewatched or saw for the first time, and just a trend that I noticed in some 80s and 90s movies about the plotting of some of these movies. And specifically, I have two specific examples I'll go into right now. So the first one involves the movie Beethoven, and the second one involves the movie Three Men and a Baby, which are both topics on there. And what I mean by the weird plotting is these movies have very strange turns that they take and things places that they go. If you've seen those movies, Jacob, are you familiar with both those movies? Have you seen them?
I'm
Beethoven, Three Men and a Baby.
yeah, I'm more familiar with Beethoven than I am Three Minute Baby.
Okay.
But it's been so long since I've seen Beethoven that
Mm,
I couldn't tell you much about the movie
okay.
at this point. But
Gotcha. Well, I rewatched it again for that show. I wasn't going to, but then it popped up on Netflix, and I was like, sure, why not? I'll just pop it on. It's like 80 minutes, no problem. So I just had it on. So the thing I'm talking about is, and I'll go each movie. So in Beethoven, when you put it on, and a lot of you know the basic premise, it's Charles Grodin and his family. There's a stray Saint Bernard puppy, and they end up kind of adopting the dog and raising the dog. And of course, it's if you watch the trailer, it's like, oh, of course, it's a big Saint Bernard. It's bigger than they think it's going to be, and it slobbers all over the place, and it causes Charles Grodin lots of silliness, and you think it's going to be one of those movies where maybe there will be like some kind of antagonist, but it's not going to get too serious, right? Okay,
right.
well, here, you watch the movie, and the movie opens with Stanley Tucci and Oliver Platt as the dog nappers in the movie, which when you go back and think about 1992, I mean, it's before these guys are really famous, and you're like, whoa, holy crap, it's Stanley Tucci and Oliver Platt as these dog nappers. You're like, wow, okay. So, anyways, they end up robbing a dog store of all the puppies, and you go, okay, so they'll kind of be the antagonist. At least that's what you think, and you're like, okay, I kind of see where this is going to go. Maybe they'll be the dog nappers, and maybe they're scooping up puppies and kind of selling them to other people, stealing them from the puppy stores, but making the profit, because the puppies are pretty expensive at those puppy stores, right? Some of them can be like $1,000. They can be very pricey. So maybe they have a side thing where they're selling to other people, and and this is what I thought going back to it. I'm like, okay, maybe there's a thing where how they'll encounter Beethoven later is maybe they have a female Saint Bernard and they need a male Saint Bernard to make Saint Bernard puppies, and maybe they're very expensive puppies, right? Something like that, right? And they'll encounter Beethoven, and the first half of the movie will be Charles Grodin and Beethoven getting in their little misadventures around the house and him getting dirty and them doing this. And they do all that. They do that where he's messing up his pants and he's getting muddy and he's getting slobber all over the place and, playing with the kids and all that. That's fine. But you think like, okay, it's around the time of Home Alone. Maybe like there'd be something where the kidnappers go to get Beethoven, but Beethoven foils them with Home Alone type tactics where they're slipping on the, on the staircase with slobber, or maybe they're stepping on his dog bones out in the yard and clonking each other in the head. Just that's where you think it's gonna go, right? Maybe some silly
Right.
stuff near the end, right? And they're bumbling robbers, and they get caught at the end, right? No, 45 minutes into the movie takes a turn to where it's got all that silly stuff at the beginning. You still check in with the dog nappers out, and then they kind of bumble around a little bit. But there's an evil vet, and I forget the guy's name who plays him, but they go take the Beethoven to the vet, and then the vet is actually the boss of the dog nappers, and he runs his own animal lab where he's doing crazy animal testing, and he's got all these dogs hooked up to wires, and there's syringes everywhere, and he wants to test a new ammo on a big dog like Beethoven. So literally the thing ends up being he's pointing a gun at Beethoven's face near the end of the movie, about to shoot him in the face. And you're just like, where did this movie go? This is traumatizing for children watching this thing. You got this guy who's euthanizing dogs or testing dogs, and doing like got him hooked up to stuff, and he's got a new ammo he wants to test out on a dog. Like, where did this come from? Like, why is this necessary? Why couldn't it just be the bumbling dog nappers and some Home Alone stuff and some hijinks? Like, did we really need to get to the point where we're pointing a gun in Beethoven's face? I mean, it just doesn't make any sense. It's like, I don't know who thought of this stuff, but like, I was blown away by that. Like, halfway through the movie, it just takes that turn. And of course, Charles Grodin has to he's like jumping through the spotlight of this building, falling on the dog nappers, and a dog comes out of nowhere and bites the vet's nuts off, like right in the balls. And it's just weird. It just gets insane. So I just, there's a simpler version of that movie that could have been made. I don't understand why it had to take such a dark turn. Now, on the other hand, 3 Men and a Baby, and again, I don't know, have you seen 3 Men and a Baby, or are you at least familiar with it?
No, I know the basic premise, but I haven't seen the movie. So.
Well, it's funny. You know the basic premise, right? It's 3 men and a baby, right? And the thing is, like, this baby shows up. They all live together in this loft in in New York City, and they're all like roommates and stuff and friends. And the baby shows up at the doorstep with a note on it. So you're like, oh, okay, here's the premise. They're gonna have some hijinks with the baby. Oh, we don't know how to take care of the baby. And again, for the first 30, 40 minutes, that's what it is. It's Tom Selleck's running to the store to try to figure out what formula do I get? The one with the iron, one without. Well, does he eat food yet, or does he just do that? I got to get wipes. So how many wipes do I get? Oh, just get a whole stack. What size diapers do I get? Da, da, da. And Steve Guttenberg's back at the house putting on, diver's helmet and all kinds of weird stuff, trying to make the baby stop crying. And he's, which way, they try to put the diapers on. How does it go on? And it's all the typical things you think are in the movie, right? Like, it's all the silliness. Oh, it's 3 men who don't know how to take care of the baby, da 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 da. And you're like, okay, fine, I see where this is going. And you think it's going to be maybe there's some conflict with, and because they tease that there's a mom who actually abandoned the baby, and it's actually Ted Danson's baby, and she was like, I can't take care of this baby, you guys do it. And you think maybe she'll come back in the movie and there'll be a custody conflict or something, you know what I mean? Kind of like Big Daddy. Like, have you seen Big Daddy? How they're like, well, can you really take care of the kid because it's not yours? But Jon Stewart's the real dad. Maybe there's a conflict like that. Okay, no. There's a thing where Ted Danson is off. He's an actor, and he has a shipment of heroin, movie heroin, sent to the apartment, and it's like a package. And he says there's a misunderstanding because he says you guys are going to get a package on Saturday, but the same day as the drug package is the baby, so they think the baby is the package. And then these mob drug guys show up at the house. And they go, oh, you're here to pick up the package? Oh, you mean the baby? Here's the baby. And they're handing off the baby. And there's a whole thing where they've got to foil these mob drug guys, and there's shootouts at the end and all kinds of stuff. And you're just like, where? This movie made $200 million in 1987? What is going on here? Why was all this necessary? Did you need to have this crazy heroin drug plot with these 3 men and a baby premise, is that necessary? Couldn't you have just had maybe the mom comes back and wants to take care of, wants the baby back, but they're like, no, we're the real parents because we've loved this baby and this baby loves us, and maybe they demonstrate that in court. I don't know. You could have some court thing, maybe like a
Right.
custody thing, and that'd be perfectly fine for like a conflict. Like I understand you have to have conflict, but why drugs? Why is this
Yeah,
necessary?
that's a strange choice.
It's I don't understand this, and nobody ever talks about that with that movie. And there's other movies like that. I mean, I was racking my brain, but like Free Willy's kind of like that too, where it's just got weird stuff going on with like insurance scams and like I don't understand why these movies have to take this dramatic direction. If you take a movie like Home Alone teases, Joe Pesci and Daniel Stern from the beginning with him casing the place as the cop in the beginning, and then he has a few little encounters, and then obviously it builds up to Kevin kind of foiling the robbers at the end, but it doesn't get into like they do work for the mafia and they're coming to like shoot Kevin in the face. You know what I mean? Like, let's imagine if that's how Home Alone ended, where like he's fighting the mafia at the end. Like, that's essentially the same thing, Like, no, it's just these two burglars and they really want this house because it's the best house in the block. Okay, simple enough, right? I don't like going back to these kids movies and seeing how over plotted they are, how over complicated they are. I mean, the movie I made up for Beethoven makes perfect sense. You could do it for 90 minutes. It's no problem. And it wouldn't be like, it wouldn't go to such insane places. That's my rant. I'm sorry. I don't like movies like that that just go into crazy directions. It just doesn't make any sense. It's you think too hard. It's a kids movie.
Right.
Don't think that hard.
Yeah. Like, I think you bring up Home Alone, and that's it's like a perfect family movie.
Yeah.
Kids home alone, some robbers, and that's every kid's dream, right? Is to
Well,
you
yeah.
know, well, I'm home alone with no parents.
Well, and you get that in the
That's
movie. He's running around the house. He's jumping on the bed. He's eating the junk food. He's watching movies he's not supposed to watch. You get all that, but like the robbers are there, but the robbers don't have like a murder plot or some
right.
mafia plot. You know what I mean? They're hitting all the other houses and they think it's alone. He's not alone. Okay, how can we rob the house with him in it or lure him out, or they're figuring out like how we can do this. Okay, well maybe we'll break in and maybe just tie him up or something. Like they're not in to murder him, like initially. I mean, they want to kill him at the end because he's like burned him up and does all this stuff to him, but
Right.
they don't go in with like we're targeting we're hitmen going after this kid or something like that. Let's keep it simple. Like keep it simple when it comes to kids and family movies. That's all I'm asking.
Exactly. Yeah. I don't think that's a very it's a strange request that needs to be made.
Yeah,
But it's
yeah.
not.
I mean,
It shouldn't be like. Let's keep
I just
kids movies.
I was astonished with these two movies, like the places that they go that they just didn't need to go. It's
Exactly.
not necessary to have these overcomplicated plots. Like it's keep it simple. The premise, you can stretch the premise out for most of a movie. Yes, have some kind of conflict. I understand that you need something to get it to 90 minutes. It can't just be, in Beethoven's case, Charles Grodin is conflicted whether to give the dog back. Like I get it. You can have that, but have something else. But you already had these two these two dog nappers. Just have the dog foiling the dog nappers, and maybe at the end, him and Charles Grodin, they don't really like each other, but they have to like fight together, against the bad guys. Maybe the Beethoven jumps up and hits him in the back, and Charles Grodin punches him in the face, and yay, they work together and they really love each other. Like whatever. Like this is not that hard. Just keep it simple.
Yes. Keep it simple. That kind of I like the segue because that kind of plays into what we're going to talk about next, and it's kind of what we've been watching. And
Mm.
so the movie I watched this week that I really want to talk about is Pig, and
Mm-hmm.
I think Pig was pretty simple. It was about Nicolas Cage, who plays um, an ex chef who lives in the woods,
Mm-hmm.
who has a truffle pig that gets
Mm-hmm.
stolen from him.
He's like a
Uh,
mountain man. He's got like a big beard and long
yeah,
hair and
yeah,
stuff, right?
totally
Yeah.
grizzled. Just
Yeah, yeah.
yeah. So the movie stars him and Alex Wolf, who comes in and buys the truffles from him, and then the movie gets into Nicolas Cage and Alex Wolf trying to find this pig, and it's a simple concept. It's kind of like John Wick, you know, Well,
with the pig.
they killed my dog. I'm gonna go get them now. They
Hmm.
kidnapped my pig. I'm gonna go get them now.
Yeah.
And it was a very simple movie. It's not very long. It's about 90 minutes, I would say. I can't remember, like with credits. It was
Hmm.
about 90 minutes, and it's such a good watch. Like they break it up into three parts, so you can kind of
Hmm.
you can kind of follow the story. I was very surprised at Nicolas Cage in this movie and just how like he goes over the top when he needs to, but compared to some of his more recent stuff, he's so like even tempered, even though he's trying to fight his pig. Like he loves the pig. Um,
Sure.
so it was a great performance. I'm glad that he's getting love for it. He was nominated for Best Actor at the Critics' Choice Awards for this performance,
There you
which I think is well deserved. I would have loved to see a Golden Globe nomination, but
go. Hmm.
it is Nicolas Cage, and I guess he does kind of
I
have
think
that
he's
reputation
still
now.
he's still trying to get in better graces back with like the various academies and things. Like he's kind of fallen off, and I think they're still trying to open it back up to re-embracing him. But I've been enjoying this sort of a little because it's not even like a big renaissance like he's been in the big movies, or whatever. He's just doing these cool, interesting like independent films. He's just
Right.
doing really cool things that are not he was in that rut of like the red box rut, where you saw him, kind of like Travolta or some of those guys like just doing these red box movies. Bruce Willis, every time you go to a red box, it's like half of the movies are theirs, just with dumb titles and just silly crime movies or whatever, where they're just sleepwalking their way through it. No, I mean, between like Pig, which I haven't seen yet, but I have the Blu-ray sitting over there. I really want to. I'm definitely going to watch it before the year's up because I've seen it come up on a lot of best of lists. But even stuff like Willy's Wonderland or Mandy or the oh god, the Lovecraft movie,
Color
the
of
Color Out
Space.
of Space. Yeah,
Yeah.
Color Out of Space, which is really good. And he did that Prisoners of Greenland or whatever it's called. Yeah, he's just been
Right.
doing like really cool like independent features that let him have his crazy Nick Cage moments sometimes, but also have some character to them and reason for them to be crazy. Like
Mhm.
Mandy, he doesn't do that till like the end of the movie. It kind of builds up to him going crazy. And but yeah, like he's still a great actor. I was just watching Raising Arizona for the first time, which I had never seen for our '80s comedy show that we're gonna do, and
Mhm.
I had never seen Raising Arizona. Oddly enough, so it was just a blind spot. And like he's really great. Like he's such a great actor, and
Yeah.
and he's one of my favorite guys. And I just think sometimes these actors get in a rut, but I think once they find that hook or that niche, to get back into it. I mean, dude's crazy talented. He's still crazy talented. I'm glad he's kind of getting this love that he's been getting lately and doing these cool movies.
Yeah, I'm excited for what he has coming up. We were talking, before we started recording, his new movie, The Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent, where he plays Nick.
Yeah.
Um, and I'm looking at his IMDb right now. He's got 4 movies that are in post production right now. Um,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
the dude is working, and as he should be, because he still puts out great stuff. Pig, you can go all the way back to Mom and Dad.
Oh,
And
yeah. That was kind of one of the starts of it. Yeah, for sure.
yeah, I even dug him as a voice actor in the Croods too.
Sure.
I didn't hate him in that. I'm not a
Well, what
big
about
fan of the
Spider Verse
movie.
doing the
Oh,
noir thing, the Spider
absolutely,
Noir, right? Like that stuff
yeah.
was great.
And
Yeah.
I believe he was Superman in Teen Titans Go
Hmm.
to the Movies, right? So yeah, I
Hmm.
mean,
Well, he's always wanted to be Superman ever since that Tim Burton Superman movie kind of fell through back in like 96, 97,
right,
when he was cast and came this close to actually playing Superman on screen, to where they were even doing screen tests, they were doing costume fittings. That movie came real close to being made. I mean, I know we always talk about that documentary that John Schnepp did before he passed away, kind of about the Superman Lives movie. And also Kevin Smith has talked about it a lot because he wrote the first draft of that movie.
mm,
But yeah, like I think it came up in our comic book show. I know it's kind of a slight tangent, but I almost wish that movie actually existed, just as
right,
like an
yeah,
anomaly, like that movie had gotten made, because it's not like it would have, um, you know, we could still have the same timeline of Superman that we have now. Like I think Man of Steel and stuff still would have been made, things like that, because even if it was bad, it would have slid right in with Batman and Robin and like Spawn and like that weird mid-90s comic book movies that were coming out
Right.
then. That
Right.
were that didn't really go anywhere, but they just kind of existed and they're just kind of weird. Because yeah, I mean, how bad could it have been? Could it have been worse as Batman and Robin? I mean, really? Like it would have fit right in with that, even if it was bad,
Right.
But I wish it existed. That's one of those movies out there that I wish had actually gotten made, just to kind of see what that would have been like.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm a big Nicolas Cage fan. I don't care what anyone says about him. He's
Me too.
I think he's doing movies that he enjoys, and I think every
Mhm.
actor should do that. You should don't go the Bruce Willis, John Travolta route where you're just making
Yeah.
movies to make a paycheck. I don't know if that's what they're doing. That's just what it seems like because none of those scripts are great. Like The Fanatic,
Yeah.
starring John Travolta, directed by Fred Durst. Like
Yeah.
I I watched
Yeah. Or like there was that movie where it was like where he was like the electrician or the utility worker putting his life on the line or whatever, like movies like that. I can't even remember what that one was called, but yeah, like yeah, the Fanatic. Oh my God, with
or
and
Gotti.
Devin Sawa was in that. Yeah. Well, I think the problem is that Gotti. I think he thought was going to be like his big comeback. Like he's doing this mob movie. He's playing John Gotti, which has never really been like a big John Gotti movie, even though he's kind of a big figure in the mafia world. And when that tanked, I think it was just like people just kind of blew him off. Like, okay, dude. Like we couldn't even do John Gotti right. Like get out of here. I mean, he's one of those guys that I think Travolta's another guy who's kind of due for a second comeback too. I think he'll get it eventually. I think he'll find the right projects to come back. Because I know there's still a passion with him. Bruce Willis, I don't know about. I don't think that passion's there anymore. I just think he's just over it. Like I just don't think he has the heart for it. Like you can tell Nick Cage still has the heart for good material, like when it comes his way, that he wants to make interesting projects and make interesting things. I think Travolta does too. I think he just needs the right project.
Right. Yeah, I couldn't tell you the last Bruce Willis movie I thoroughly enjoyed. Like I enjoyed moments of
Man.
Glass, but I
I
wasn't
like
like big.
Glass, but it's not really because of him. You
Yeah,
know what I mean? Glass was, I'm glad that I think he gives a decent performance, but I think that movie really happened because of what happened with McAvoy, with Split being a
hmm
success. And you could tell Sam Jackson was enjoying playing the character again, in Glass. Like he did a great job. And I think it's just Willis was just kind of riding at least that mini wave of the Unbreakable, kind of
hmm
resurgence. But yeah, like even he's not really the reason. Like, like I like Glass a lot. I know people are kind of split on that movie. Pun intended, split on that movie. But actually, I didn't really intend that, but it just came out that way. But yeah, like, but yeah, I'm like looking through his IMDb right now, and it's like, yeah, it's all these sort of Redbox things. Out of Death, Survive the Game, Midnight in the Switchgrass, Breach. And every one of them has like a 3.3 on IMDb. It's just like, yeah, well, that sounds about right. I mean,
yeah,
what was the last thing besides Glass he had in the theater? What, the Death Witch remake that was pretty bad? Things like that.
yeah,
Yeah. I mean, that was before that. It was what the GI Joe sequel. Red 2. Yeah, I mean, it's been a while for Bruce, but Bruce is. I feel like he could get the good projects and get the interesting roles if he cared.
right.
I think I don't know if he has that passion anymore. I mean, it's hard to tell with him because he seems like a cool dude. You see him on like the roast and stuff, and he seems cool. Like he can be cool.
Yeah,
Maybe if he went back and did another comedy or something a little lighthearted, like whole 9 yards or something, maybe he could, have a little fun. But it's just going to take the right thing for him. But I'm always pulling for somebody like Travolta. I think he can be really good when he wants to be too. When he has the right project.
yeah. So what's something you've watched this week?
Oh man, I had a few rewatches and a few new watches because we've been prepping for we've got a tier ranker fight coming up of 80s comedies. So I've been filling in some gaps. I have some 80s comedies. So I did have a few first time watches, I watched Real Genius with Val Kilmer for the first time, which I had never seen. I don't know if you've seen Real Genius.
Not.
No, it's interesting. It's one of those waves of movies that came out in '85. It was right in that mid wave where they were doing these nerd movies. So it's like Revenge of the Nerds, and you had like weird science, about kind of science nerds. And then Real Genius is like Val Kilmer's. He's a science nerd, and there's a new kid working with him at this college. He's kind of underage, and oddly enough, William Atherton, the asshole from Die Hard and Ghostbusters, is kind of the asshole professor. So it's him again playing that '80s asshole, and so he's there, and it's like them creating lasers, and there's a famous kind of finale with them popping a bunch of popcorn in this house, and the house kind of blows up with popcorn. Like, it's a lot of fun. But yeah, the movie was interesting, but when you think about the context of it, yeah, it was right in this wave of like kind of trying to make nerds cool, which I'm cool with. I like that because everybody's a nerd. I think we're all nerds in our own ways, but it was before it was kind of cool to be a nerd. So it's kind of fun to go back and watch these where the nerds are the protagonists. So I watched that. That was pretty good. I saw Fast Times at Ridgemont High for the first time, which I had never actually sat down and watched. Have you seen it?
That's a great movie. I love that movie.
Yeah, it's really good. I forgot that Jennifer Jason Leigh is like naked that whole movie. I mean, she has a lot of sex in that movie, and yeah, it was interesting. Like, she's taking her clothes off like I've ever seen in that movie. Not that I was complaining, but it was just weird because it was weird because one of my favorite movies of the last 10 years is The Hateful Eight, where she's like this haggard, like weird, murderous,
Right.
disgusting woman. And then like to see her in her prime where she's like this kind of almost like a sex symbol in the '80s was a little strange. But Fast Times is good, man. Fast Times is one of those quintessential kind of high school movies, and just the high school experience. And of course, that's where Sean Penn kind of got his big breakout playing Spicoli, kind of an iconic stoner character. He's literally got scenes where they're coming out of a van with smoke, like he is a stoner in that movie. Not that it's a term, like he actually is a stoner in that movie. But Judge Reinhold's great. If you've never seen Judge Reinhold outside of like the Santa Claus movies or something, like go watch Fast Times. He's really great and in there. And yeah, I like Fast Times a lot. And oddly enough, Vincent Schiavelli plays a teacher in both like Real Genius and Fast Times at Ridgemont High, which was odd. It's just those weird character actors that pop up. The guy who plays Chosen in Karate Kid 2 was in both Better Off Dead that I watched and Real Genius as well. So like all these same people are just popping up in the movies. Like Jordan was texting me, he's like, why does Curtis Armstrong in all these movies? The guy who played Booger in Revenge of the Nerds, like, why is he popping up in all these movies? I'm like, that's the way it was, man. All these guys played like the friends in all these movies back in the '80s. That's just what they did. So yeah, I've been on a '80s kick lately for that. But I did rewatch Sicario today, which is one of my favorite movies of the last 10 years. And goddamn, that movie holds up. Like, fucking, have you seen Sicario or the sequel?
It's been a while. I haven't seen the sequel.
Yeah, Sicario is worth a rewatch if you haven't gone back, man. Like, that movie just kicks. That movie's so good, and it's easily my favorite Villeneuve film. Just like I like when he kind of keeps it simple, and Sicario is great, and the sequel's worth watching. It just doesn't have the Emily Blunt perspective, which you kind of need. That sort of fish out of water character, kind of going through all this stuff, which Sicario 2 doesn't have. So it's not as good. But yeah, that's kind of what I've been watching lately. And other than a couple of other, like I said, family movies I watched for that, I've just been doing that in the kind of '80s kick. So yeah.
Yeah. Oh, and also Fast Times at Ridgemont High, the guy we were just talking about, Nicolas Cage, has a.
Oh yeah. Very brief. Yeah, very brief.
Very brief. Yeah.
When he was, I believe he's got his Coppola name when he was
Yes.
in that. I think it's like Nicholas Coppola or something.
Coppola,
Yeah, because that's yeah. That's what he's billed at. And then there was somebody else who debuted in one of those that I can't remember too. But yeah, a whole bunch of those people always kind of pop up in those movies if you look closely.
Yeah. So we're about halfway through. So I think it's time
To talk some Spidey. Time to talk some Spidey.
Spider-Man.
All right.
He's been my favorite superhero, like on screen. I'm not a big comic book reader, so like none of that. I'm not gonna know. Like, oh, well, if you've seen the comics, no, I haven't. I have not.
Well, the Easter, if you look in the background of this one scene, they reference issue number 47, this particular storyline, like those Easter egg
Right.
videos you see, and it's just like, yeah, whatever. Like I don't know any of that stuff. I watch the cartoons and I watch the movies. That's what I watch. you know.
I was watching a video today, and they were ranking the Spider-Mans, which we'll do later.
Mhm,
And they were talking about the Amazing Spider-Man 2, when Gwen dies. Like as soon
mhm,
as her back snaps, you can see the clock go to 121, which is the
mhm.
issue that she died in. And I'm like,
Wow.
oh, cool.
How would you? How would?
I never
Wow.
would have
I'm
thought about
sorry
that.
I didn't. I'm sorry I didn't have my stopwatch out when I saw it in the theater and caught that Easter egg on the first
Yeah.
watching. Right? Yeah. Like, okay, sure. I guess if you're looking for stuff like that, fine. But yeah, I don't care about that.
I
Whatever.
was like, no, I always did know, like it was the clock in the movie
Mhm.
goes
Oh,
to
sure. Yeah.
121,
Yeah.
and I'm like, I always thought that was like strange that they went to the clock like after that. I'm like, okay, that's what time it is. Cool. I guess for comic book nerds,
Yeah. All
significant.
right.
Um, but
Thanks for telling me what time it is in the movie. I just knew it was dark out. That's all I knew. Okay. That's all I needed.
it was, oh, it's late. Thanks. Um,
Thanks. Yeah.
anyway, yeah, Spider Man. So it's been a big month for Spider Man, because not only is No Way Home, but in theaters now. Uh, Feels like that movie's been advertised for a year now. It's a pretty
Yeah.
good
Right.
time of year. But just real quick, the Spider Verse teaser also dropped, and
Hmm.
I enjoyed it. I know you're not as high on the
Yeah.
Spider
It's
Verse.
not that I didn't enjoy the actual Spider Verse, like the content of the movie. It's just literally the animation gave me a headache, and it's again, it's me being old man Pez on all these shows. I'm 35, but I feel older because everybody else is like late 20s and stuff like that. But yeah, I don't know what it is, man. I think I think it would probably play better at home. I need to rewatch it like just on my my home system now, and it would probably be better because yeah, I was like I saw it on I think I saw it on IMAX or something like that. So it's a
Mm,
giant screen, and it just gave me like a headache, especially the climax sequence. But yeah, like I don't necessarily I didn't really like dislike the movie or anything like that. But I did have a few nitpicks of them just kind of starting and stopping him being Spider-Man throughout the movie. Like I was kind of just waiting for them to pull the trigger to be him like full Spider-Man. It's like, oh, he's gonna do it, but no, somebody pulls him back, and he's gonna do it again, and somebody kind of pulls him back. Like how they kind of just throw that around. And I just wanted to like, so maybe the sequel will be better because he'll be full on like Spider-Man
right.
now, like doing his thing. So maybe I'll be more into that. I'll just have to sit like I'll just sit in like the back row of the theater, like really far away from the screen, so it's
There
more
you
like
go.
more like home. When I see how I'll make sure when you reserve your seats now, I'm just gonna reserve like the back corner of the theater so I can kind of watch it from a distance, sideways, and not get a headache.
I'm wondering if I would have had that same problem too, because like I did love the animation, but I watched it at home for the first time. I didn't watch it
Mm.
in a theater. So
And
um,
see, and just like everything, my collection's so big. Like I have the Blu-ray sitting over there. Like even movies I'm not hot on, like I'll buy them anyways, just because I love physical media and I just like
right,
to
yeah.
have it, over in the collection.
I,
But yeah,
I own B movie.
B movie, yeah, no, I've got stuff like that where, yeah, it's like I own. I mean, name a movie, I probably own it, even if it's like super mediocre. I own everything because that's just what I do. If I see it for, excuse me, if I see a Blu-ray of it on Amazon for $5, I'm just gonna buy it just because, why not?
Right. Yeah, and why not? I mean, it's fun to pop in some
Well,
cheesy B
well,
level stuff, and then
and to me, I'm a big physical media guy because I don't trust all these digital things. Like I do have a lot of movies digitally on Vudu, but I feel like you don't really own them when you have it on these digital things. I mean, those companies could go out of business, and like the website, maybe it'll get absorbed or something, but things could disappear. Like, what if your internet goes out of your place and you can't access any of this stuff without internet? I mean, I had a thing in Florida where a hurricane knocked out my phone line that went to my house, and I didn't have internet for 2 weeks. But guess what? I have 2,000 movies sitting right there that I can pop on without an internet connection, and we can still have entertainment. I don't rely just on streaming, and I just don't like all the streaming stuff where like they bounce the rights around. So this movie's available 1 week on this service, but then it disappears for 2 months, and then it pops up on a whole another service because they have the rights now, and then it pops up on another service because they have the rights now. Just like cable rights, and just I don't like that. I like being able to just walk right over there when I need to watch something, and I'll blind buy stuff. I don't even care. Like I'll walk over and just grab it right off the shelf, and I can pop it in, no problem.
Yeah.
Like I love the convenience. I do like the convenience of streaming sometimes if I just want to pop something on randomly and just have it on in the background. I'm cool with that. But if I want to sit down and watch a movie, I like being able to go over to my shelf, pick up a Blu-ray, and just pop it right in.
Mm-hmm.
I just like that.
Yeah, I'm the same way, but I recently moved and I've been looking for some better movie shelves because the ones I had were getting old. So I need to, because right now they're right there, and it's
Oh,
kind of
okay.
inside a little bit that they're not um, on the shelf right now.
Yeah.
But we'll get there eventually.
Yeah.
Just like I'll see Spider-Man eventually, and by eventually I mean Sunday, which I'm very excited for. I posted on Facebook.
Yeah.
I don't think I've been this excited for a movie since Endgame. Um,
You
which
probably should be because I have this. Here's my problem with these last couple of MCU movies have been lately, and tell me if I'm wrong or if I just have a weird perspective of it. I feel like this one has a purpose. I feel like the last couple of movies have just been kind of aimless. Like they're not working towards anything right now. Ever since Endgame, these movies have been kind of floundering. Like everything up to Endgame they were working towards the Infinity Stones, working towards the Gauntlet, working towards Thanos, even just piece by piece, putting all the
Mhm.
pieces together for this big finale. And ever since then, it's been like, okay, what do we do now? Okay, like, okay, now I guess we're rolling with the multiverse stuff because, like, I guess Doctor Strange is going to do that, and are we going to build to something else? Are we going to build to Galactus? Are we going to build to something bigger? I don't know, but I feel like I haven't even seen, to be honest. I haven't watched Black Widow. I haven't watched Shang-Chi. I haven't watched Eternals. Spider-Man's the first MCU movie I've seen since Endgame
Mhm.
in the theater. So because I feel like I just and from what I've read, they're not building to. They just feel like filler. I don't know. Am I wrong? Like they just kind of feel like they're just these things that aren't really building to anything or don't have a big purpose. Am I
Well,
wrong?
at the time, it felt like Black Widow didn't have a purpose. It felt like they were just giving her a solo movie
Mm-hmm.
because, like, well, she's not here anymore. But we'll give her one last send off. And if you've been watching Hawkeye, there was a purpose to Black Widow. Um,
No, I haven't
and
been
then
watching that either. I've only watched WandaVision, and that I struggled to get through, honestly. Yeah.
so no desire to see Hawkeye. So if I spoil
I
something, you won't be
guess,
like,
well, no, I know who's popped up because I've seen it
okay,
on my
okay,
Facebook feed. I know
okay.
that somebody from, like, I mean, I guess we could just, I know the Kingpin is there now. I know. But, that's fine. But to me, it's like I just have had no desire to watch Loki. I've had no desire to. I made it halfway through Falcon Winter Soldier and just kind of was like, okay, fine, whatever. I just feel like these things have just been there because we need to just keep pumping out content, but we don't have a bigger purpose yet. Or we haven't figured out what that bigger purpose is. And maybe if they do something down the line and it puts those other movies back into some kind of perspective, then maybe I'll go back and see it in that bigger perspective. But I kind of feel
Mhm.
like phase one of the MCU, going all the way back to phase one, we were building to the Avengers, right? Like we were building to the Avengers and everything fit into place. And then we had Avengers and it was great, but we all knew that there was bigger threats out there that we could definitely do something. And then they kind of slowly revealed that we're going to build to Thanos and we're going to build to the Infinity Stones. Cool. Now, and then in movies up to then kind of built this little thing and built this little thing, and we all kind of built up to that. And maybe we'll get to that eventually in these new phases, but I just feel right now it's just kind of floundering, and I haven't had much interest. Like that's kind of hindered my interest in all these properties. If that makes any sense.
It does, and I'll agree on Eternals. Like my interest in that movie has gone. I haven't seen it yet either. Um, I do hear that it's coming to Disney Plus in January, so
Mm,
I will give it a watch.
yeah.
Because I am an MCU guy. I do. There's only one movie that I'm like meh on, which is Thor: The Dark World. I think that's a pretty
Oh, you mean
consensus
the movie
on.
I had to argue against, yeah, and lost in the battleground? Yeah, okay.
Um,
Apparently, yeah.
yeah, but it sounds like that movie would have been better suited as like a mini series, like a Disney Plus series, before
Mhm.
making it like a full length movie because you're introducing so many characters at one time.
Yeah.
Even more than there was in Guardians, which I think Guardians introduced those characters perfectly. I think they handled each one of those great. But Eternals, it just sounds like too much for a 2.5, even a 2.5 hour movie.
Yeah,
Um,
I don't know why Eternals couldn't be a show when you have like what is it, 7, 8 characters or something, main characters in that movie that you really have to introduce and kind of get to know, and the movie's just long and they cram a lot of stuff in from what I hear, and it's just like yeah, something like that. I feel like instead of doing a Hawkeye show, could we do an Eternal show and really set up these characters as opposed to a character that we kind of already know and not saying you can't still do that as well, but like so I feel like something like Eternals, like yeah, like how about we set up the characters? Maybe each episode has like a setup of each one of those characters, and you give an
right,
hour to each of those characters and really build them up, and then maybe eventually either have a movie or have them pop into one of the other movies, or something. I don't know. Like I feel like there's a way you could have done that and a little bit better.
yeah. So yeah, I'm very iffy on that one. I will watch it and then form my own opinion, obviously. But
Hmm.
I did think Shang-Chi was really good. Um, I thought the action scenes in that were incredible. There's a fighting scene on a bus, and oh my goodness, that might be one of my favorite scenes of the year. Honestly, it was done so well. I know you said you haven't seen it, but if you have Disney Plus, I think it's worth a check.
No, and Lad and Black Widow are on Disney Plus now, so now they're available at home. Like I can easily, like I will pop them on probably within the next couple of weeks. Like I will pop them on and watch them because yeah, I can do that easily now. But yeah, I mean, the only thing that really got me at least somewhat peaked was the fact that they finally brought Abomination back from the old Ed Norton Hulk. Because I've been saying that for years, for like 12 years. I've been like, that dude ain't dead. He's still out
Yeah,
there as Abomination somewhere. Like, where is he? Like, I kept thinking that he was going to pop up in one of the later, MCU movies, maybe closer to like, even like stuff like Ragnarok or whatever, something with Hulk in it, that he was still going to pop up
mhm.
somewhere. I kept just waiting for them to whip him out for some movie because I was like, well, that dude ain't dead. He's down in some facility somewhere or doing something. He was still Abomination at the end of that movie. He just got choked out. I was like, where is he? So the fact that he pops up in that movie, had me intrigued. But again, it wasn't enough to really put me over to watch it in the theaters. That's still on
Right,
me, but it is what it is. Again, I just feel like they were kind of these filler movies that they were just doing these ideas, but again, once maybe they reveal kind of where they're going or we kind of see maybe a bigger you know purpose for some of these, something they're building towards, I'm just kind of waiting for that to happen because I think right
right.
now they're kind of throwing stuff at the wall and kind of seeing what sticks, and right now I think it's kind of this idea of the multiverse, and to be honest, I don't think they would have started doing that if 5 years ago they announced that they were going to do this Flashpoint movie that they're just now getting around to, and that they were going to start messing with the multiverse. And it's like, okay, we got to try to beat them to it, to do this multiverse thing. And because
Yeah,
yeah,
the
the only
Flashpoint
reason
movie that was supposed to be in theaters two
the
years
Flash
ago.
movie that's supposed to be in theaters 2 or 3 years ago that would have beat them to it already, that they've been trying to get off the ground, yeah, that's gone through director changes and stuff. Because yeah, I mean that was another thing that I think DC would have got there first, and especially with all the people that are supposedly going to pop up in that movie. I think it's going to be kind of similar to Spider-Man, where people are going to be hyped for it. But now this time the MCU kind of beat them to it and are doing it first. So yeah, I mean, I think that's what they're kind of rolling with right now because people are kind of digging it as just like I mean, it's kind of a fan servicey thing, but it's still fun. But it's at least something different. But
Right.
yeah,
I
like
think
that's fun.
yeah, I think Spider Verse really showed that people are genuinely interested in it because Spider Verse was
Yeah.
so successful. Yeah, so yeah, my expectations. I'm not going to say my expectations are high because I don't really want to go into a movie with like super high expectations and then be disappointed.
Mhm.
But I'm really excited because just the thought of Spider Men is intriguing.
Yeah.
I've loved the trailers, and like just kind of the different iterations of the characters that are in this universe. I
Hmm.
think Jamie Foxx looks amazing as Electro. I'm ready to see it on the big screen. Sandman, just all these, and Doc Ock is probably my favorite Spider-Man villain. Um,
Yeah, yeah.
Seeing him back is really cool. So yeah, expectations. I don't want to say they're super high, but because I don't want to disappoint
Well,
myself.
and I will say this, like, I think people, I was afraid people online are like, I've seen these memes where it's like what people like they use the poster, what people think is going to happen in
Right.
this movie, like they think it's going to be like 800 characters, like all at one screen. And I'm like, okay, taper your expectations a little bit. I will say it's very good. You will enjoy yourself because again, I've seen the movie. You have not as
Right.
of this recording, and I won't spoil anything. I will say this: the characters themselves, the multiverse characters that pop up, have way more screen time than I thought they were going to have. I'll just say
Oh,
that.
okay.
So that was a thing that pleasantly surprised me, is that they have like way more to do in the movie than I thought they were going to have to do in the movie. And there's some, I'm not spoiling anything. You don't have to skip anything, but they have some tremendous character interactions. You know what I
Hmm.
mean? Just different characters, the different ones interacting with each other and the things they call back to. And if you know these movies very well, you know what I mean? Like, and you know what they're talking about and kind of what they're referencing, like it's a lot of fun. I'll say, and then yeah, they have way more to do than I thought they would, and way more to do with the plot elements. I'll just say that.
Oh, that has me even more intrigued because I was like, all right, so how much
Are they
lizard are
just
we
going
gonna
to
get?
pop
How much?
up, or in the
Yeah.
last 15 minutes? Are they going to pop up in the last 20 minutes? Or other than I think based on the trailers, people knew Doc Ock was going to be a big part of it, right? Because he's in a
Mhm.
lot of the trailer. Like okay, maybe he's going to like be, but no, these characters have a lot to do in this movie, and it's a lot more than you think it's going to be. And I was very surprised how early they show up, and B, how long they stay on screen. I'll just say that for sure.
Mhm. I'm excited.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. No,
just
if
the
you're a
same level
fan,
of excitement
if
for it.
you're a fan of these Tom Holland movies, which again, I'm kind of lukewarm on the Tom Holland movies so far. They just haven't really clicked with me. I think the villain stuff has been the
Mhm.
best stuff in both of them. I'm just not huge on Tom Holland as Spider-Man, but this one was starting to win me over. It's easily my favorite of the three Tom Holland movies, like by a mile. I think there's actual stakes in this movie. There's some good dramatic moments that I don't think we've had so far with him in the other films. The moments get a little more room to breathe without cutting in joke, 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 around them. There's actually some good moments to breathe. And I guess that's a good segue to, I was kind of saying my rankings of the Holland movies. Maybe we'll get into our more overall rankings of the Spider-Man movies now. As
Yeah,
we're kind
I
of
think it's
47
the
minutes in.
perfect
Yeah,
time.
it's a good segue for that. Yeah.
So
So how do you want to do this? Do you want to go by the bottom to top? Is that what you want to do and work our way up and kind of
yeah,
see what we
we'll
got?
just go back. We'll just go back and forth. These are just the Spider-Man movies, not like movies Spider-Man has appeared in. So, even though I love his introduction in Civil War, we're not going to include that because if we did, it would be number one because Civil War is my favorite MCU movie at the moment.
Right.
I think he was obviously he was a big part of Infinity War, so I loved him in
Yeah,
that
yeah. No,
too.
we're
But
just talking about individual Spider-Man films. I guess we're including Spider-Verse, right? Am I right?
I'm including
Um,
Spider-Verse, so
okay, cool, cool,
yeah.
cool. Just checking. So, yeah. So the Spider-Verse, the Tobys, the Garfields, and the Hollands. Yeah. So yeah, that's where we're at. So there's 9 movies total if you include the current one in opening in theaters this
Yeah.
weekend.
And
But I know you
you'll be
haven't seen
ranking
it,
nine.
so you can only include. Yeah, I'll be including that one. You will not. So we'll see how. Again, we can come back to it maybe on the next episode once you've seen it,
Mhm.
and maybe you can give us an updated, where you would
Oh,
throw it
for sure,
into.
for sure.
Yeah.
So since you have an extra movie, why don't you start with your number
Sure.
9?
Well, since I have an extra one, my number 9 is going to be up until this weekend, the most recent Spider-Man movie, Far From Home. I just nothing about this movie clicked with me other than Jake Gyllenhaal. Jake Gyllenhaal is about the only thing that intrigued me in the movie. Again, maybe I'll get hate for this. I'm not big on the Tom Holland Spider-Man movies. They just have not done a lot for me. I don't really like him as Spider-Man that much. I don't think he has any kind of edge to him until this movie. This movie, they finally give him a little bit of edge. And excuse me, I don't like his quips. I don't like that they've turned him into half Iron Man. He's got godlike powers. Use your godlike powers. Use these powers in natural ways. I don't need you to have metal tentacles and nanotech so Far From Home I just almost nothing about it clicked. It's hard to even put into words, but I haven't gone back to it since I watched it, which says a lot. I didn't even go back to it before I watched this new one, which says a lot. So it just nothing really worked for me for that one. But how about you? What do you have in your in last place?
My number 8 is The Amazing Spider-Man 2. Now,
Hmm.
before we go any further, I will say that I enjoy every Spider-Man movie. There's not like I have nitpicks. Obviously, no movie's perfect, but
Mhm.
like every Spider-Man movie, I found something to enjoy. So yeah, The Amazing Spider-Man 2, and probably just because it feels unfinished
Hmm.
is my biggest problem.
Yeah.
It's just the way they left it off. I was looking forward to that third Amazing
Yeah.
Spider-Man
Me
movie.
too.
The way they left it off with Paul Giamatti as Rhino, I think that would have been amazing to see more
Well,
of.
and of course, building to that Sinister Six that they were clearly building to with the different stuff and the different tech in that one chamber or whatever. They were
Right.
clearly building to that. They were going to bring in Vulture. They were going to bring in all these different characters. And maybe even Morbius. Do some of that stuff. Like they were clearly teasing some of that stuff. And yeah, I mean, I think what's interesting to think the alternate universe or multiverse, if you will, where we would have been had we gotten an Amazing Spider-Man 3, because that movie, the second one, did not flop. It made $800 million.
Right.
I mean,
Yeah.
like it made money, like that movie was not a financial flop. $800 million is a lot of money, like it wasn't
Can you
$1 billion, but
figure what
like,
that was?
I mean, dude, like that's nuts. It made a lot of money, and the fact that we didn't get a third one out of that just because the reception was kind of lukewarm was astonishing to me that we didn't get that third one. So I don't know. I guess there's a universe out there where we got that third one. We didn't get Spider-Man in Civil War because that series was still going on. You know what I mean? And can
Yeah.
you imagine that? Like, and
Mhm.
maybe we'd eventually get maybe there's a universe where Garfield's still playing Spider-Man and he'd join the MCU at some point, but it could be, it's different to think where we would had we gotten a third one.
Right. Yeah. I probably would have been as excited for that one because I did
Yeah.
play Paul Giamatti as
Mhm.
Rhino. I like Jamie Foxx as Electro. I think I don't know how other people feel, but I think he's my favorite part of the movie. I think um,
Mm.
his character was just intriguing to me because, like I said, I'm not a comic book reader, so I don't know the
Sure.
origins of the character. I just know what I see on screen. What I saw on screen, I really
Hmm.
enjoyed. Um,
Hmm.
I think like but the most Emma Stone and Andrew Garfield have amazing chemistry, and I think their
Hmm.
stuff was the best part of the movie besides Jamie Foxx. And to me, I'm like, I want a Spider-Man movie. I don't want a Peter Parker, Gwen Stacy movie. Uh,
Yeah. Yeah.
so I feel
Yeah.
like Spider-Man up until the end, like I do think that final scene battle between him and Electro was really cool. I think the effects in that were great, but I
And
think Jamie,
genuinely, the death of Gwen in that movie is like got me in the theater. I was like, "Holy shit!" Like, "Oh my god, she hit her head!" Like, "Oh my god, she's dead!" Like, "Oh shit!"
it's like,
Like
oh
I was like,
yeah,
"Oh
she's
my
coming.
god." Yeah,
Wait,
and no, he didn't catch her. And
oh
I will
yeah,
say that they, again, not spoiling much, they touch on that in the new one. I'll just say that. And it kind of gets you choked up again.
oh,
And it's something, man. It's something. I won't, again, no specific scenes, but there's
oh,
all this stuff gets callbacks. I'll just say that. You know what I mean? There nothing gets left on the table. You know what I mean? So yeah, you're gonna love this shit. but uh,
if
but
I could
yeah, I
call
mean
out
it.
be a movie, I
Yeah,
would.
yeah, no, yeah. Like, can I go see the movie right now? I'll be right back and we'll finish our episode. Yeah, no. But yeah, no, same thing with me. My number 8 is Amazing Spider-Man 2, and again, not because I vehemently dislike it. I think Far From Home is the only one I've actively kind of disliked, just because nothing really clicked for me except for the Mysterio stuff. But again, now that I've seen this movie, maybe I'll go back and watch it and watch the whole trilogy, and maybe I'll have a better appreciation for them. Now that we've had this third one, maybe I will when I rewatch. But yeah, Amazing Spider-Man 2, again, same as you. I think the chemistry between Garfield and Emma Stone is still some of the best stuff in the movie. I like Dane DeHaan a lot. I think he's actually really good in that movie. I just wish they kind of done more with some of the stuff that they teased in the trailer that I guess got cut out or whatever, with them talking about his parents and stuff. The parent stuff just kind of goes nowhere with Peter Parker's parent. It's just kind of it's like dead in the water. That it's just not that interesting. And I just thought this stuff at the beginning with Jamie Foxx as like the uber literally pulling up your pants pocket protector nerd was like really bad. Like I liked when he finally turned into Electro, but like that stuff is really bad. Like speaking of Revenge of the Nerds, like he's right out of Revenge of the Nerds in that movie, dude. Like in the beginning of that movie, I'm just like, what are we doing, man? Is it like 1986? Like what are we doing? Like stop. Like he can be like an awkward dude, but yeah. He's much better in this new movie. I'll say that. I liked him a lot as Electro in this new movie. So I'll say that. I think they do a much better justice here. So yeah.
Well, that's good to hear.
Yeah.
I'm really excited to see him back.
Again, that's not spoiling anything. He's in the trailer. We know he's in the movie.
Right,
you know what I mean? Like everybody knows Jamie Foxx is in the movie. Like I'm not spoiling anything by saying yes, he's in the movie. I just will say what they do with the character, like and his performance, I think is much better in this one. He's much more comfortable in it. I think he gets a little more room to breathe in the character. And again, kind of almost also make fun of kind of some of the stuff they did in Spider-Man 2, like with his kind of poke fun at it a little bit, which I think works, because the whole like him falling into a thing of eels is weird, but they make some nice jokes about kind of how these people become villains, if that's to make any sense. You know what I mean? There's some nice, good stuff. Some good material.
Yeah, I'm glad that I'm hearing that they're handling the multi-villains very well, because that was the biggest problem for me with my number 7, which is Spider-Man 3. I thought if Sandman was the only villain in this movie, it might be higher on the list.
Yeah. Well, and you could even have Sandman and still have the Harry stuff. I just think that movie, if you just cut out all the Venom stuff and save that for Spider-Man 4, like it would have been a much better movie. The fact that even Sam Raimi has said he didn't want to do the Venom stuff. He just wanted to do Harry and the Sandman. You know what I mean? So that's all he wanted to do. He wanted to keep going with the Harry stuff because obviously they had been progressing, through all the movies. And it makes sense for him to still be a villain, and continue his character arc, but have the Sandman as well. He did not want to do the Venom stuff at all. That was a total studio thing. And again, I think you could have teased it in the movie because they do the stuff with the professor looking at the symbiote stuff. Like you could easily do that in the movie and still have that on the table for the fourth one, you know what I mean? And have that be like, here's the thing is around, it's here around here and it's going to get out. Maybe even introduce Brock in a scene or two doing stuff at the Bugle, you know what I mean? Just have him there. Yeah. But like not make it like a central point of the movie, and then you build on that and do Spider-Man 4, which is what Raimi wanted to do. He wanted to do Venom in 4, but made the whole thing about Venom, do the whole Venom arc in that movie, and that would have been great. And yeah, it's just too much going on. I have that movie a little bit higher than you, not a whole lot, but a little bit. But just because, again, the Raimi stuff is my favorite. Like I love Toby. I just like that universe that they set up.
Yeah.
Essentially.
And I don't understand why they wouldn't listen to Sam Raimi, because you see how successful 1 and 2 were. Spider-Man 2 is still one of the greatest superhero movies of all time.
Ever. Right.
Yeah. So listen to the guy who knows what he's talking about.
Give the man the creative control he wants. He's obviously doing something correct. These movies are making boatloads of money. They're being embraced by the fans. People love it. They're digging it. Like, stop trying to shoot. There's ways you can. The MCU in general has shown us that you can tease stuff gradually and pay it off later. You can set up things here or there. You can still have the Venom thing come down in the movie and be around, but not be a central focus. Like do the stuff with the professor, do the, all that stuff, and then you pay it off later. And then roll with that. But yeah, it's just too much going on in that movie. I definitely agree.
Yeah. That and just some of the choices they made for Peter, like the dancing Peter.
Well, but that stuff goes back to the symbiote, the Venom stuff, because if you take the Venom stuff out, you don't have that stuff with Peter.
Right.
If you think about it, because you don't have the black suit. So if you take all that out of it and just have his continued stuff trying to win back MJ, you know what I mean, and dealing with Harry, you know, because you just wouldn't have to worry about all that. You could play around with that in the beginning of Spider-Man 4 with the black suit, and then go full on Venom, you know, with Eddie Brock, like halfway through the movie, you know, like there's a way you could have done that. Because yeah, if you think about it, if you take the Venom stuff out of it, that also takes away the black suit Spider-Man, which I like some of that stuff in that movie. It's way too rushed, you
Right.
know.
I agree. Yeah, I mean, if you take that out, do a Spider-Man 4, I think you could have like the greatest superhero quadrilogy
Oh yeah,
almost
totally.
ever. Yeah, like, but
Mm.
regardless, it's number 7. I don't hate it. I still really enjoy it. It's a movie I will revisit, but just a little lower on my list. What's your number 7?
Yeah, my 7 is Homecoming, and again, that just comes to um, the Tom Holland stuff. Like I saw that movie in the theater. I just did not click with any of the decisions. I did not like him. I did not like MJ. I did not like Flash Thompson. Like the fact that they made him a nerd. You know, he's making fun of Peter, but it's like you guys are on the same nerd team. Like, what are you talking about, bro? You ain't no bully. You're on the same nerd team. You're making fun of him for being a dork. You're a dork. Like you're on the same team, stupid. Like I was baffled by some of those decisions. I thought the only really good stuff, and the reason I have it higher than Far From Home is I love Michael Keaton in that movie. I think he's great. I like his storyline about having this contract to clean up New York, you know, and have that being taken from him. But he's not necessarily like a bad dude. He's just trying to take care of his crew, his guys, you know, and like make some money to survive, you know, on the side. He doesn't have aspirations of world domination. You know, he's not trying to take over the world in that
Right.
movie. He's just trying to like make a living and make some
He
money
just wants to
and
support his family.
steal back some corporate, you know, some corporate stuff, you know, not he's not going after civilians. Again, he's not trying to he doesn't have some sinister plot. He's just like taking care of his family and his crew, his boys, his friends, you know. He's just doing this thing. Yeah, he's dealing stuff to people, but like the people he's dealing to, all they want to use it for is to like rob banks. You know, they're not trying to take over the world either. You know,
Yeah.
it's like I'm getting this technology so you can rob a bank easier. You know, and that money's insured by the federal government, so whatever. You know what I mean? Like no big deal. Like they're just robbing banks. Like I dug how simple that was. You know, and he was just like, dude, I'm trying to take care of my family. Spider-Man, if you get in my way, I don't want to hurt you. I don't want to kill you, but like I will, because this is what I do now. So if you interrupt that and try to send me to jail and try to screw up me and my daughter and my wife's life, like I'm gonna mess you up. You know what I mean? Like I like all that
Mm-hmm.
stuff. So that's why it ranks higher than Far From Home for me. Is like I dig that stuff. So yeah.
Yeah, I definitely think Keaton is a top tier MCU villain. I really dug him
Yeah.
too. Um, you'll
Yeah.
see that movie soon, but not too soon,
Sure.
because
Mm-hmm.
my number 6 is the first Amazing Spider-Man. And again, not to say I hate it. I think they made Spider-Man. I think they made Peter too cool. Like Peter's not supposed to be this
Sure.
cool, cocky um, person. But again, I love the origin story that they did here. Even though we saw it similarly in the original Spider-Man, but I think they tackled it. I like this version of Uncle Ben and Aunt May. I think they were portrayed very well. The villain leaves a little to be desired. I'm not a huge fan of the villain. Um, the, this might be strange for some people, but the reason it's so high is this might be my favorite Stanley cameo, where he's in the
Oh right. What's got the
library.
headphones on?
He's in the
Yeah.
library,
Yeah.
and we got the
Yeah.
fight
Yeah.
going on in the background. I love that
Sure.
scene. Like I could go back and just watch that scene. Again, the chemistry between Emma Stone and Andrew Garfield is really good. They play off each other really well. But
Mm.
I think it's a really solid Spider-Man origin story. But I just think we got a better origin story in the original Spider-Man, which is why this one's just a little lower.
Sure. 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 Yeah. Yeah. That one's right above. Is my It's actually a little bit higher on my list, but my number 6 is Spider Verse again because I need to go back and rewatch it now at home. But I just had such a weird theatrical experience with it. It just kind of threw me off. But again, I have nitpicks about the Miles Morales stuff, but I enjoyed all the side characters. I enjoyed Spider Gwen and Spider Pig and Noir and like all that stuff. And like I kind of dug the general storyline. Again, if the sequel when they have Miles Morales like being full on Spider-Man, I think I'm gonna like that more. You know what I mean? Like when
Yeah.
he's actually doing his thing. You know, so I'm looking forward to the sequel. But there was enough stuff going on that first one where it's kind of right above the middle for me. You know, because again, I need to rewatch it, go back to it, but that's kind of where it is for me.
Yeah, I think it does get better on a rewatch personally.
Mm.
But I can definitely see why like some people are. I'm not gonna say negative, but just not as high as some people.
Again, I don't dislike it. I'm not saying I dislike it. You know, so I think some people take weird things online where it's like, oh, I have a top 10 and this one ranked 5 or 6. Oh, you must really hate it. No, like I
So
don't.
far.
You know, there's some of these lists like, you know, Henry and I are going to rank Rocky movies. I don't dislike any of those Rocky movies at
Right.
all. Like I even the worst one on my list, the one that's going to rank the lowest, I still generally like. I don't love it, but like I still generally like it. I don't dislike it. I think some people are a little harsh sometimes where they're just like, what do you mean it's number whatever? I'm like, that must mean you hate it. Like, no, I didn't. I don't hate it.
Oh,
I just like other ones more than this
right.
one. You know, I'm just more
Like,
passionate about some other ones than this one.
yeah, like I have Amazing Spider-Man 2 at 8. I still give that movie a 7 out of 10.
Yeah,
Like
I'd
it's a
still
really good
watch
movie.
it. I still think it's better than other superhero movies that are out there. You know, I just think it's like kind of mid-level when it comes to superhero movies. There's something it does really good and some things it does really bad. You
Mhm.
know, it's a mix of the two. But I still find elements to like in those movies.
Right.
You know,
So that was number 6.
on mine.
Number
But yeah, you're at 5, I think, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So 5, it's the original Spider-Man.
Hmm. Interesting.
Yeah, I've got Spider-Man at 5. I am a big Tom Holland fan as you can tell by now. I haven't mentioned one of his movies yet. But like this is really close to number 4 for me. Like my 5 and 4 could switch and I'd be okay with it.
Are you talking about Homecoming or are you talking about the original Sam Raimi Spider-Man?
Original Sam Raimi.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
Yeah,
Okay.
I have that one at 5. But
Okay.
yeah, so but yeah, it could switch with my number 4 and I'd be okay with it. I think my biggest problem, which this is me looking back at it. At the time, I didn't have this problem. Is that you can kind of tell that Toby Maguire is not a high school student,
Oh,
um,
right. Yeah,
and
yeah.
like it wasn't a problem at the time, but like watching it now, it's kind of like, yeah,
Well, you
like
don't buy what's his name, Deathstroke as Flash as a
right,
16-year-old.
yeah, like
What's his name? Sam. What's yeah? God, why am I
Joe
blanking on his
Manganiello.
name? Joe Manganiello. Yeah, you
Yeah.
don't buy him as a 16-year-old Flash Thompson being called
No,
Jack.
like
I wouldn't want to quite me neither. Yeah.
right, but
No.
it's a great origin story. And like having known nothing about Spider-Man at the time, I really dug it. I really enjoyed the Macho Man cameo as Bonesaw.
Oh, dude, it's
Um,
great.
yeah, Willem Dafoe is amazing as Green Goblin.
Mhm.
Um, so like this, like my 5 and 1 could interchange, and I'd be fine with the ranking. So
Yeah,
like,
well, you're saying like your top 5 basically is like on any given day you could be high on one or you know kind of flip flopping them
right,
around or like they're kind of interchangeable. Yeah, I get that.
right.
I
So
get that. Yeah, totally. Yeah, you don't have any real dislike for any of these 5. Like you're pretty
I
high on
don't
all of
like
them.
no, I'm
Yeah,
like
yeah, yeah.
so high on all of them. Yeah,
Mhm.
Spider-Man, like, and I think Spider-Man really changed the comic book movie genre as well. Like, it was such a game changer.
Mhm.
And so I think without Spider-Man, I don't know where like comic book movies would have gone. So I mean, I know we had X-Men and Blade, but I think Spider-Man is like kind of what elevated it. So
Yeah,
um,
no, I've got a story about that when we get to my ranking of that movie. So yeah, I'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute.
yeah, that's my
Um,
5. Why don't you?
My 5 is Spider-Man 3, Sam Raimi Spider-Man 3. Again, because I realize that movie's a big kind of overstuffed kind of mess, of a movie, but I still like that world that Raimi set up, and I still just like being in that world with those characters. I still
Mhm.
love the chemistry between Toby and Kirsten Dunst in that movie. I understand like some of the stuff gets a little corny, even with with Harry. So good. Like that stuff is so memeable. But like I kind of like him messing with Peter throughout the movie, and I generally like some of the black suit stuff, like when he's being conflicted, like with the kind of drunk on the power at some points, here and there. Again, there's stuff that goes over the top that's bad, but there's stuff that's kind of good that's sprinkled in there that I like. And yeah, I genuinely love the Sandman stuff. Like that whole sequence with the score where he's like first the sand and trying to grab like the stuff, the locket thing. Like I think that stuff is brilliant. Like that stuff is great, great. It's one of my favorite sequences in the whole series. With the score, just it's so good. And I think there's a lot of to me, I think there's more good than bad. And again, if you'd taken out the Venom stuff, like it's just too early, then that movie would be so good. But it is what it is. It was what it was. But I like being in that world with those characters. Toby's still my favorite Spider-Man, and I just love that world. So yeah, Spider-Man 3 is still it's the lowest ranked of those movies, at my 5, but I still like it a little more than some of these other ones just because I like being in that world.
Right. Yeah, I totally get that.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, and this is why I think you're such a great co-host, and we can, play off each other.
Yeah, totally.
Where you're not as big a fan of Tom Holland, I am a huge fan of Tom Holland because
Sure.
my number four is Homecoming.
Mm-hmm.
I think picking up after Civil War, I think Tom Holland feels like a high schooler. I think he gives off that high school vibe really well. I do really enjoy the supporting characters. I think Ned is a great supporting character. I think he's a great man in the chair. But like you, I think the best part about this movie is Michael Keaton. I think the
Mm-hmm.
villain stuff is really good. Even though him being oh, what's her name? The I'm drawing a blank on the girl's name. Um,
Zendaya or somebody else.
no, the love interest in this one. I can't remember, but she's wearing a new skirt. Being her dad, I thought it was like, oh, of course. um,
Oh yeah,
I
right,
can't
yeah.
remember. I
Mhm.
cannot remember her name. And I don't know why, but being
Yeah,
like that, it was a little predictable, but it definitely worked. I
hmm
think, um, yeah, no, I don't mind the Iron Man stuff. Um, Probably because I am a big Iron Man fan too. I enjoyed seeing him in the movie. Um, I think
he was fine. I just thought he played a bigger role than I thought he should have in that movie. I don't mind him popping up here and there, maybe giving him a little tech, or again, getting him out of a bind, once in a while. Like that's fine because he's still inexperienced. Like I get that. I just think he looms way too heavy over that movie in general. Like it's just
right,
it was like because even the marketing was like Spider-Man Homecoming featuring Tony Stark,
mm,
like, and I was afraid of with this movie, the way the marketing was. I made a little joke that some people were getting after me about when the first trailer for No Way Home came out, and I was like, man, that Doctor Strange trailer looks really good. And people
right,
were like,
right,
and people were like, that's a Spider-Man movie. What are you talking about? like I'm like, yeah, it's just a joke that like Spider-Man or Doctor Strange was in like 70% of that trailer. You know what I mean? That's all
right.
it was. I just made a joke that like it was kind of heavy on that at first. But I don't mind Iron Man being in there because it's still part of the MCU. It's like when Nick Fury shows up or something, that's fine. I just and I understand they have this bond. I just like it was too much Iron Man Jr. for me. That's all.
And I definitely see that criticism. I don't have the problem with it like some people do.
Oh, sure. I know.
But
I understand what people
it's
like, and
just
I'm not crapping
yeah,
on the movie.
right,
I understand what people are fans. Like, I totally get it. It just wasn't for me. That's all. That's all.
right. And I thought John Favreau in this movie was great. I thought
Mm.
he provided some good like comedic moments.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, just I overall really solid. I do think Tom Holland brings the best of both Peter Parker and Spider-Man, where I thought Andrew Garfield was, a really good Spider-Man and Tobey Maguire was a really good Peter Parker. I
Peter
think Tom
Parker.
Holland
Yeah.
blends both of them nearly perfectly. Um, I'm not going to say perfectly, but nearly.
I think for me, I don't mind his Peter Parker. I'm just not a big fan of his Spider-Man. Does that make sense? You know, like but
Yeah.
that hurts. But that hurts the movie as far as me getting really invested in the action and me getting invested in
Right.
the later half of the movie. You know, like I don't mind when he's just doing science with Ned, or hanging around, or doing school stuff or whatever, or even hanging around with Stark and kind of playing off of him. Like I think he does a good job with that. To me, I'm not a big fan of his Spider-Man, but this new one, again, this new movie, I think they do it the best in this movie, to me personally. So again, a little bit. I think Spider-Man needs to have a little bit of edge, just a little bit that can come out every now and then. You know what I mean? A little bit that can come out, and it kind of comes out in this movie. So I liked it a little bit more.
Cool. So yeah, that's my number 4. So we'll move on to yours.
My 4 is Amazing Spider-Man, the first one with Andrew Garfield. Because yeah, I mean, Lizard aside, and I'll say that Lizard probably has the least to do in this new movie, but probably rightfully so, because he's the least interesting out of all of them, But I think you would agree with that. He's kind of the least interesting out of most of these. It's just I like Bryce Ifans as an actor, but he's not given a lot to do in that movie, and his plot is really silly about wanting to turn people into lizards. That's just a kind of a silly plot. That's almost like Spider-Man 3 territory. But yeah, but all the stuff with Garfield, I think is great in that movie. I love Dennis Leary as Gwen's dad, as Captain Stacy.
Yeah.
I think he's great. And I just it has one of my favorite moments in the whole Spider-Man franchise when the city lines up the cranes for him to get to the building, and he uses that to get there, just the city getting behind Spider-Man and coming together to help him out, is awesome. I love that.
That's a great moment. Yes.
It's a great sequence. So it just made me smile. So yeah, and I like Garfield. I realize he's more like hipster cool, Spider-Man. But again, it's a different take. What I like about all three of these is that each one has their own take on the character, and they're all unique, and that's what makes it so cool in this movie, in the new one, when you see them together. Again, that's not spoiling anything. Everybody knows that they're in these fucking, they're in this movie. Everybody knows that. So but again, I won't spoil their specific interactions, but because they're so different, it makes for a really fun dynamic, because they all have their own personalities and their way of playing the character, And I think even Garfield has his own unique way of playing it. I like how kind of quippy and sarcastic and almost like an asshole Spider-Man that he is, you know what I mean, doing his thing. I dig that. So but he's right in the middle for me, because I don't quite love it as much as Toby, but he's right behind me for me. So I like him a lot.
Yeah. So we'll speed this along, because we are going a little longer than anticipated, but
that's okay. But we're wrapping it up. We'll get there.
Which my number 3 might be controversial. My number 3 is Spider-Man 2.
Okay.
I have it at 3. That's not a slight on the movie, because my 3, 2, and 1 are all 5 out of 5s for me.
Sure. Yeah.
Maybe even 4 and 5 could get there too, but right now, yeah, my 3, 2, and 1 are all 5 out of 5s. I think this is the best Toby of the trilogy, the best villain of the trilogy, the best action of the trilogy. I think
that subway, that train sequence is still maybe the best Spider-Man sequence ever. Just the whole thing, him stopping that above ground train or whatever, is still start to finish fantastic.
Right,
that whole
so great. It's hard for me to find anything about this movie I dislike.
Yeah, it's pretty hard. Everything's pretty great about it. Yeah,
there's a reason it's considered one of the greatest superhero movies.
Well, it's number 3 on your list, Jacob. So why do you hate Spider-Man 2 so much? Well,
maybe it's
okay.
Again,
if you listen to me, I'm saying it's like a 5 out of 5. I love it. All 3 of these could interchange on any given day. I'm not saying it's bad. Why do you hate it? You're number 3, did you? So stupid.
Spider-Man 2 used to be in my top 10.
Sure, all time. Right.
It's dropped a little bit just because I've watched more movies since 2004, but
sure. Yeah,
it's so hard. It's nearly a perfect superhero movie.
Yeah, damn right.
Oh,
It still holds up. No, it's good.
yeah.
My number three is the most recent Spider-Man No Way Home, which is saying something
Ooh,
how good
okay.
it is on overall rankings. So it still doesn't overtake my 2 and 1, but uh, given the fact that of how much I'm not a big fan. Again, not that I totally dislike them, but how much I'm not really high on the Tom Holland movies. The fact that this one is so high up says a lot. It's the best Tom
Hmm.
Holland's ever played for me as Spider-Man. It's the best. I think one of the best written ones. I think it's super super entertaining. Um, and oddly enough, like I don't think it even has the best action sequences, but like the whole movie just plays on a high. It's just really good. Like I just love the flow of the film. I think everything just kind of works. Um, it kind of gets back to basics in a few things. Just some really good basic action scenes, that just work because of the character interactions and the way things are written. It has great dramatic moments. Um, just again really good character interactions between the different multiverse characters. Like all the stuff just really really hits for me. Like I just think it's everything pretty much pops off of this one. So yeah, it's going to take. It might crawl up higher with subsequent rewatches. Again, I've only seen it once and very very recently,
Right.
so that could be a recency bias thing. But I think it'll hold up on rewatches. It's really really good.
Yeah, recency bias might be my reason for my 2 and 1. My two is Far From Home. I really enjoyed it. It was actually it because it came out the same year as Endgame, and everybody was so high on Endgame. I liked Far From Home more. I'm not gonna say a lot more. Just a little bit more. I thought just because of how much we saw Spider-Man and Iron Man interact with each other. It's because Peter was so connected to Tony. I think it was the perfect follow up to Endgame. Um, and man, the Mysterio stuff is great. Um, kind of a predictable twist, but it works. And I love just like I said, Tom Holland feels like a high schooler, and I love that we got a high school feel to the movie. After everything Peter's gone through, he just wants to be on vacation with his friends. But of course, you're an Avenger now, and that's not going to
Yeah, you got
happen.
things. You got with great power comes great responsibility, sir, as the great saying
And
goes. Yeah.
and we see what happened with that responsibility that he was given, and having to see him get that back. I think worked really well. I really enjoyed the movie. It's really high up on obviously my Spider-Man list, but it's also really high up on my MCU list as well.
Mm-hmm.
I just I don't know if it is a recency thing. Maybe upon rewatches of the entire franchise, from
Sure.
Holland and Garfield and Toby. Um, maybe I'll reorder the list, but as of right now, it's number two.
Mm.
Um, which you
Nice.
know, I say I like Tom Holland, but my favorite part about both of the movies have been the villains. um,
Sure.
Even though I am a huge Tom Holland fan, I think Michael Keaton as Vulture
Sure.
and Jake Gyllenhaal as Mysterio were solid casting choices. I don't think they could depict
Mhm.
anyone better for those roles. Um,
Well, and I will say this, and again, this isn't spoiling anything, but No Way Home picks up literally right after Far From Home, like where it
right.
picks up, like which is kind of cool. So, like, if you're a fan of that movie and it picks up, and there's stuff from the end of that movie that plays right into the first act of No Way Home, and the Mysterio still kind of looms over that movie, even though he's not around, like
Mm.
it's. I will say, if you're a fan of that movie and kind of where it left off and last and stuff like that, like it picks up right where that one left off. So you'll enjoy that.
All right. I have a feeling I know what your number two is.
Okay, my number two is the original Spider-Man, Sam Raimi Spider-Man. Yeah, because and it's not hard to figure out, but yeah, and this one just holds a special place in my heart because I worked at a movie theater in 2002 when that movie came out, and I literally watched that movie become like a phenomenon. You know what I mean? That movie came out. It was we had an 18 screen theater that I worked at in Jacksonville, Florida. And it was on 10 out of the 18 screens. It was playing like every 20 minutes. You know what I mean? I'm talking like 2 o'clock, 2:20, 2:40, 3 o'clock. You know what I mean? Like, so if you missed one, you just went right into the other one. They were all like that first weekend was bonkers. I watched it all the time on my breaks. That one just feels so much like a comic book. Like it just feels like a comic book come to life. I mean, just the action sequences feel like they're ripped from a comic book. The stuff with him with this homemade suit doing wrestling stuff is right out of the comic books. Like that stuff is, my buddy was telling me that's right where it's like literally lucha inspired stuff, it's right out of the comic books. So all that stuff is great. And again, I just dug Toby. Yes, I know they feel older than high schoolers, but if you think about it, in the second movie, third movie, like he moves on to college pretty quickly. Like they don't stick around, pretend like he's still in high school, the whole time. So I do appreciate that. But yeah, like if you can get past that, I think, and they don't spend that much time in the school setting. So, you can kind of brush that off. And it's really not that big a deal. But yeah, I dig Toby in this movie. Kirsten Dunst is so good. And yeah, Defoe is just, dude, when he turns on that crazy in the movies, man, like he turns it on, and that whole argument of like, and he's still got it in this movie. I'll tell you, when he turns on the crazy and that crazy face, like, and he does the voice, like he's still got it, dude. He's so great, and you're gonna love it because it does it justice, and he's really really fun. Just how much I've sacrificed, just out of nowhere, all that stuff is just so good, and I love how just it's always there. Yeah, he doesn't need a mask. Like I remember the argument people have saying forever. Like he's crazy enough and weird looking enough. Like he could just put on a hoodie and just be Goblin. That's what it is, man. He could just do it, and he doesn't need any outfits or anything. But yeah, he's just a lot of fun in that movie, and I just dig it. I dig it a lot. So yeah, it just holds. It's always going to be high on my list because it just holds a special place in my heart. That movie came out when I worked at the theater. I watched it over and over again, saw it a whole bunch of times, and just really stuck out to me. It's always been a favorite of mine.
Yeah, it's definitely solid. Like there hasn't been a bad Spider-Man movie yet, in my opinion.
Sure.
And my number one, I don't know. Again, this could be recency bias, but it's Into the Spider-Verse. I thought this movie was phenomenal. I love the animation style, like you mentioned, right out of a comic book. Like this feels like
it's a comic book come to life.
Yeah,
that's for damn sure. Yeah.
I love the introduction of Miles. I do get the criticism of the stop and start when it comes to being Spider-Man. But the animation, I thought the voice casting was all done really well. I did not see his uncle. I did not see that coming. Actually, so I love all the other Spider people and non-people.
Yeah. Now all the Spider characters, are a lot of fun. Yeah.
But yeah, when he finally becomes Spider-Man and he finally like just gets to be Spider-Man, I thought was so cool, and I'm looking forward to seeing more of it.
Well, I latched on to the Jake Johansson character, that version of the Spider-Man, that he plays. I like being able to play, and I connect to that where you could almost play it like he's playing the Tobey Maguire Spider-Man because they almost play it like that.
Yeah,
like you kind of pretend he's the Tobey Maguire Spider-Man because he's like the universe he comes, the stuff he talks about. Don't they even have a scene where he's doing the train sequence? Like it's pretty much they're pretty much saying he's the Toby Spider-Man basically, without being Toby. So I mean, you could play that he's like 10 years older and he's a little out of shape, things like that. Or he's definitely aged a little bit. Like I that's one thing I latched on to that movie is I kind of pretended he was Toby the whole time and kind of interacting with him, and so that's one thing I kind of connected to. But yeah, I can see why people love it. Like don't get me wrong, I don't dislike the movie at all. I think it's fun. But yeah, like I see why people hold it up in high regard. It's definitely unique, and it was I think it was a movie that had to be in animated form, honestly, to do everything they do. And the fact that they went that route and it's been its own thing and it's going to be its own little universe, like I think it's a lot of fun. And there is a somewhat of a reference to it in the new movie. I'll just say not totally, but kind of a reference to it. Yeah, you'll catch it. You'll catch it.
I'm liking that all the movies could be connected.
Yeah, they could be. They could be. They could be in the end. I mean, I'm not saying people going into this movie need to expect an animated Miles Morales to pop out of a portal, because
Right.
no, that does not happen. I'm sorry. If you're expecting that, that's really silly, and no. But I'm not saying that they couldn't at least reference it at some point. You know what I mean, or something like that. Yeah.
I would like to see a live action Miles Morales, but for
I
now,
think they'll
we
do it
got
eventually.
yeah,
They'll get there. I think they'll get there eventually. They're just taking their time with it, which they should. You don't need to overstuff all this stuff or rush into it. I think definitely now that they've announced a new trilogy, right? Like he's going to do another three
yeah,
essentially.
yeah,
I could see him popping up at some point in that
yeah.
trilogy. You know what I
And
mean? And them casting somebody.
I think there was I don't know who posted it, but I saw that Tom Holland was like, "Yeah, I think Spider like the logical next step for Peter Parker would to go from mentee to mentor." I'm like, "Is that a
Mm-hmm.
Miles Morales tease?"
Maybe.
So
Yeah, I
maybe.
could see that. Yeah.
But yeah, no, yeah, it might be my animation bias too because I'm a huge animation fan.
Mm-hmm.
That kind of bumps it up for me, but yeah, no, Spider Verse was just really, really solid, and I loved every minute of it. So that's my
Yeah.
number one.
Well, and if you haven't figured out my number one already, yeah, it's Spider-Man 2. Someone I haven't mentioned yet. But yeah,
Such a boring
I
pick.
still think it's, oh yeah, what a dull pick. Yeah, but yeah, no, Spider-Man 2 is so great. Well, yeah, it is. It's fucking great. And it holds up. It's a near perfect film. Again, the whole Doc Ock, his whole character arc is so great. I mean, just going from this like genuine guy just wanting to do good things for the world and doing this thing and getting corrupted, by these like voices in his head, and because like these things, and they play around with that in the new movie too. I'll just say that, and it's a lot of fun. The voice thing. So I'll say that, and but yeah, like the conflict he's having when the chip breaks and kind of getting corrupted by these voices and him trying to do good but being pushed back by these voices in his head and the claws having their own personality without having any dialogue. Like I like the fact that you never hear that. It's just all in his head, where he'll just be sitting there having conversations with these tentacles where he's just like, no, we can't do that. That would be, like I'm
Right.
not, that's not who I am, like all right, but only if we do it once, if we do this and, but I don't want to do bad, him having these, Alfred Molina is just such a great actor and he's
He
such an
really is.
underappreciated actor. He's so great in everything he's in. And the fact that he's not, I feel like he should be a bigger star than he is. Like, I feel like if he hadn't done Doc Ock, like, he'd be a great character actor, but people wouldn't really know who he is. And that's a shame because he's damn good in everything he does.
Mhm.
And, he's so good in this movie. Again, all the dramatic stuff is awesome. Um, the dynamics between him and MJ kind of being on the rocks, and trying to win her back, but her kind of accepting it but not accepting it, like all that stuff is just really good. I think J. Jonah Jameson's best stuff is in this movie too. Like all that stuff is awesome. Um, yeah, just great sequence after great sequence. I mean, it's not overstuffed. It doesn't feel like there's too many plot lines going on. Everything's just kind of perfectly balanced, as everything should be, as Thanos would say. Everything's just perfectly balanced in that movie, and it just works. Everything still just works.
It does, and yeah, it's not a bad number one. Like I
Well,
said,
yeah.
for the longest time, it was my favorite. It was my
Mhm.
favorite superhero movie. So
Yeah.
I definitely get the love for it. It definitely deserves all the love it gets. It's
Mhm.
17. It's been 17 years and still talked about as one of the greatest, even with all.
Yeah, and given how many superhero movies in general we've had since then, even like since 2004, which if you think about it, there still weren't that many movies in 2004. The X-Men were still just kind of getting started. We had just come off of X2. We didn't have a lot going on even superhero wise. The Fantastic Four movie came out the year after, so they were still kind of, we were just starting to see that kind of jump starting of superhero movies, and they set a bar pretty high, man. That really didn't get topped till Dark Knight. I think it was, most
Mhm.
people would say, a few years later. But even then, when you see these lists online of like top 10 superhero movies ever made, most likely you're going to find Spider-Man 2 on there somewhere, which for good reason.
For good,
It
yeah.
just it just still works. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I think we'll call it there. That's been our show.
Hey, cool.
I
I
think
still got my shirt on from today, so yeah,
it's been a great
appropriate
great
enough.
episode. I
Hmm.
do I recommend Pig. I think you'll really enjoy it.
Oh yeah,
Let us
I'm
know
definitely
what you
gonna.
think after you watch it.
Hmm.
So and yeah, you can check Austin out over on the Movie Hero Network where he does tier ranking tournament fights, and you can check him out here where he'll be with me and we'll talk
Podcast
about
about
movies
movies. Yeah, we're gonna just
because
come on and talk about movies. And yeah, like I said, my schedule is getting busy. I'm also starting a Rankum show with Henry Sanchez called Let's Rank Stuff starting this week. So yeah, you're gonna be seeing a lot of me. So if you don't like me, sorry, you're gonna have to. There's a good chance I'm gonna be on just about every other show you're gonna see on. So sorry if you don't like me, my apologies. But
and all of those are usually live,
yeah,
which is why this one is pre-recorded, so we can just take
yes,
an
so we can
hour or
spread
an
them
hour
out a
and
little
a
bit.
half and
Yeah,
hey,
spread
you
them
want to
out.
talk about movies? We'll talk about movies because this is
Yeah.
has been a podcast about movies. Um, if you liked what you heard, why don't you give us one of these? Why not subscribe so you can check out the next
As those
episode? Well,
kiddies say, as the kids on the internet say now, smash that subscribe button.
smash it, and be on the lookout for a podcast about wrestling, which will
Ooh,
come
I'll be watching
soon
that.
with
Mm.
Jordan Owens. We'll be talking wrestling, and hopefully that will also be starting soon. I know Jordan's a busy guy with his own wrestling stuff, but we'll be making it
Well,
happen.
hopefully you guys can work in a little, old school talk in there every now and then too, not just current, AEW, WWE,
Oh,
stuff,
it'll definitely
because my jam is like old school Monday Night Wars,
right.
Attitude Era kind of stuff. So
Oh,
hopefully you guys can work in a little bit of that here and there.
well, I my goal is to just talk everything because if we're being honest right now, I don't know if we'll talk much current WWE.
Mm.
um,
Right, right. Yeah,
but
unless you're like trashing it and kind of ranting about it, there's not a whole lot to talk about it right now. Not a lot
we'll,
going on.
we'll
Yeah.
probably be talking current AEW because I hear there was a great match on the recent episode of Dynamite between Hangman Adam Page and Brian
Yeah,
Daniel.
didn't they go like an
Yeah,
hour or
they,
something?
they,
Yeah, it was
I hear
crazy.
they
Yeah.
want the draw. I have not watched the match yet, but I will
Hmm.
be turning it on soon because I have it recorded. So that's what I'm gonna do. I don't know what Austin's
Hmm.
gonna do, but we're gonna end the video here. Like, share, subscribe, do all the things a
Going
good
night night.
YouTuber is supposed to say. So
Mhm.
for Austin, I am Jacob, and keep talking about movies.